Hey everybody, it's RJ, your host, and welcome to Hash It Out. In this episode, I'll be speaking with Angela White of Success Centers about the state of cannabis social equity in legislation that has been enacted in states throughout the U.S. and is in the works on the federal level. We'll also discuss the importance of providing vital resources to underserved communities, preparing individuals for an industry that they are underrepresented in, and much more. Without further ado, let's hash it out. Hey everybody, my guest today is the Equity for Industry Program Manager at the Education, Employment, and Art Organization Success Centers. Welcome to the show, Angela White. Hello.
Hello, and thank you for having me, RJ.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. It is a pleasure to have you here. I'm very much looking forward to picking your brain a little bit as to everything that is going on in the world of cannabis, social equity, fostering the next generation of leaders. And it is very exciting to have someone on the show who is very steeped in all that's happening in our communities. And so thank you very much for being here. I very much appreciate it.
Right.
Yeah. Now, let's just jump right into it for those who may not be familiar with your organization, Success Centers. I understand that Success Centers was founded by Superior Court judges 36 years ago. And the goal was to provide education and employment opportunities to the youth in San Francisco's juvenile detention centers. Since then, Success Centers has grown to provide services to community members in San Francisco, San Mateo, Sonoma, and Alameda counties, with more districts in progress. So again, for those who may not be familiar, just tell me a bit more about the organization, what y'all do and specialize in, and what your role is specifically and wherein your passions lie.
Okay, so Success Centers, like you said, it's been in existence for nearly 40 years. Our CEO, Liz Jackson Simpson, is a remarkable woman who loves the community and has grown our organization exponentially. She has expanded. So right now, we started out in the juvenile detention centers, and we right now have a education and training school called the Early Morning Study Academy that helps our participants who want to get a GED or diploma and life skills and job readiness training. We do that. We have it's called Double ETC, which is a construction program where they're learning how to build tiny houses, and then once they come out of that, they go into union jobs. We have our arts programs that are now in the county jails, where they go in and through art teach people, mindfulness and job readiness training for when they get out and they can get back on their feet. We work with reentry community, letting them know that, what was done yesterday, you don't have to stay in that same mindset today. You can get employment and things of that nature and get some job readiness training in that area so that you're able to become a viable citizen. We have a at-risk youth program where we're teaching them coding. We have a program called Code on Point. Wow. Where they're learning coding, and they go in after they finish the program here. They're usually brought into different industry partners into tech, which is something that is rare in itself as far as finding people that look like you and me in the tech industry. So we're working in that area as well. And so what I do is I am the Equity for Industry Program Manager here at Success Centers. I came on a little over 3 years ago. I got a phone call from Liz. She was telling me that she wanted to start hiring folks in the cannabis industry, yet she knew nothing about cannabis. And so we talked about maybe 6 months on the phone. And she called me one day and she goes, "I need you." And I said, "Okay, what do you need?" She goes, "No, I need you to come and work for me." And so I said,
she's like, "I don't understand. I need you. I need you."
I said, "Well,
right.
Well, when do you want me to come?" And she said, "Tomorrow, yesterday." I said, "Oh my goodness." So So I quit my job, and 2 days later, I was here at Success Centers trying to make sure that we were able to build a program for folks trying to get work in this industry. And when I came on, there was they do something called an employer spotlight, where they would bring in like big companies in hospitality. Um, Construction, all these different things, but they hire on big scales. The cannabis industry is a little bit different. There's a lot of smaller mom and pop businesses, and then some of the big companies, but they don't hire like a grand scale of people. So we developed something called the Budding Industry Job Shop,
Yeah.
where we bring in the industry professionals to meet with job seekers up close and personal. They do sort of like a TED talk about their company, and the theme is what it's like to work a day at our company. They'll cover things like the pay rate, dress codes, and just answer questions from the participants, because what we're trying to have here is a good retention rate. And so they're able to develop a rapport and understand what's expected of job seekers, and then what the employers what type of employer they're going to be. And I tell folks that if you go visit a dispensary and everyone's looking miserable in there, that's probably not going to be the place for you. so,
Right.
or,
Right.
you know, and so, so that's been working very well.
Interesting.
And
Interesting.
then we have,
Yeah,
yeah,
please
so
go
then
on.
we have Yeah, so I know because I can talk about the work that we do. So
No
then we
problem.
have also a resume clinic and mock interview session that we do for folks to be able to sell themselves on paper. A lot of times folks get overlooked because their resumes aren't, catching the eyes of the HR recruiters or the recruiters and hiring managers. And so we're assisting them with that. We're giving them practice. We team up with we have professionals that come in that are specifically in the cannabis industry that work with folks. We have Liz Gale and Peter from Apothecarium. So we're bringing in industry professionals to actually work with our participants to get their stuff, together, so that when we send off those resumes, they're like, "Oh, I got an interview," and it's really exciting to see the processes happen. Um, we do an expungement clinic where we team up with Students for Sensible Drug Policies. As we all know, the war on drugs was hard hitting in our community, and folks uh, who have felony backgrounds, they may be able to get some of those records reduced or expunged completely. And so we host that event along with the Apothecarium here at Success Centers, and our participants can come in and get quality one-on-one private sessions where they're able to talk freely about their convictions, and a lot of times this rehashes, within them, what they've gone through. And so it just doesn't stop there. What we don't want is someone to get a job and then have to be looking over their shoulders like, when they're going to find out? When are they going to find out? If
Right.
you can get that thing expunged and, you walk into your job, you don't have to worry about that. So it's really important. And that's why we do the expungement clinic.
Mm. Mm.
We also have what we call the Equity for Industry workshops, and this is for verified equity through San Francisco, who go through the Office of Cannabis and get verified and qualify for the 3 of 6 criteria that they're asking them um, to be able to be verified at. Um, when I first started out, I was, like I said, doing the hiring for jobs, and I got a call from a verified equity person who was told by the mayor to call Miss Angela, and I'm like, how does she know me? And so from that phone call, I said, we have this opportunity. We have to get permits in the city of San Francisco to go on and get licensing, but there's a lot of things that come in between that our community just doesn't know. We know this business because we've done it in the legacy market,
Yep.
but to get on the legal side of things, you know, um, we need to know a little bit more about this business and how things work. And
Mm.
so, with that said, I, commissioned some of our local and so even from industry professionals from out of state, like Kevin Holler, who comes to us and talks about the 280 tax code and teaches people, how to protect yourself in business that way. We've had workshops on understanding non-disclosure agreements, managing a cash-only business, how to take a product from an idea to fruition. We had a really wonderful marketing director from Monogram come in and speak to us about that. So these are folks that are seriously making it happen out there in the industry, and some of which look like you and me. You know what I'm saying? And so that's really one of the things that I think really helps people understand that we can do this. So I don't want to keep going. I don't want to talk.
No, you're fine. No, no
Okay.
worries, no worries. You know what? It's important. It's paramount to do what you're doing, to get this information and to get these resources and these tools out to communities that, as you mentioned, so far have been, severely underserved when it comes to, equitable practices in the cannabis industry. Like you said, there have been people who have been holding up the legacy market for generations before
Yes.
legislation actually hit the United States. And, unfortunately, it's the reality that a lot of them have been sort of left out of the opportunity to
Absolutely.
enter that legitimate market after all their years of being in, like you said, that legacy market. And so it's so important to get these resources out to the people who need them, because it seems that we were talking a little bit on our pre-show conversation here that it seems that we more often than not, when it comes to the legislature here in this country on a federal level, even on a state and municipal level, there seems to be a lot of over-promising and under-delivering. When we talk about cannabis equity in the industry and in the community, there's always a lot of talk regarding it. But when it comes to the actual implementation of measures in legislation that gets enacted, a lot of the times it doesn't really follow through on the promises that were made beforehand. And you mentioned having worked with the mayor of San Francisco in your time over at Success Centers. And so that sort of brings me to this
No,
this
I
next.
just got well, I
Yeah,
was going
please.
to say she had a participant come in and call me, come see me, and I didn't even know she knew I existed, which says a lot about
Right.
about our mayor, right?
Right. I
And
mean, you were
so,
on their radar. Yeah.
yeah, right. And so, the thing is, like, right now, London Breed, she's just Mayor Breed, I should say.
Yeah, sure.
Because I don't know her personally, but I think she has a vision for this marginalized community. She has something right now called the Dreamkeepers Initiative, and Success Centers has received a grant to do a leadership training for folks that want to start nonprofits and or grow their nonprofit outreach. Success Centers, like I said, is has grown exponentially, and Liz is the genius behind all of that. So yeah, they're gonna be having that. And then the other thing that through the Dreamkeepers Initiative, we got a grant to do a pre-apprenticeship training for dispensaries. So we're going to be launching that in October, and so we're working with again industry professionals to come in and assist us with training folks to learn how to work in the dispensaries, and we're partnering with some of the equity businesses through SFEG, which is another San Francisco group who has several dispensaries, and some of those participants came through our program, like Sean Richards over at Burners on Haight, Cindy De La Vega over at Stizzy, the first Latina woman to have a dispensary in San Francisco.
Yep.
We have Kareem Mayfield over at 415, African American male, ex-boxer. He's got his business up and running. So we have lots of success stories. This can happen for our people, and I'm just excited to be a part of it.
Certainly, certainly. And I'm not sure if Mayor Breida of San Francisco is part of this U.S. Conference of Mayors, but the U.S. Conference of Mayors did make news just recently, just a couple days ago, as of the release of this edition of the podcast. The U.S. Conference of Mayors, of course, represents mayors from across the nation. And, you know, as I said, ever since the beginning of statewide cannabis policy reform here in the U.S., the advocacy for social equity to be included in such legislation is such a large focus for activists, though perhaps less so in the industry itself and in the actual legislation that is enacted in actual laws in actual regions. Now, that U.S. mayor of U.S. Conference of Mayors recently called on the Biden administration to not only federally legalize cannabis, but also expunge cannabis, prior cannabis convictions and allow for commercial sales under a model that specifically promotes social equity. Now, the mayors emphasize that people from communities targeted by prohibition enforcement are underrepresented in business ownership in state legal markets, and that cannabis equity initiatives that use race-neutral qualification standards in states and cities across the country have so far, quote, failed to create equitable market participation and leverage the benefits of diversity. So before I ask you how you view, how you view the state of social equity in the cannabis industry, for those who may not be familiar, we're certainly familiar with the idea of people saying, I don't see color, and thinking that is like, that's how you solve racism. But so for those people, why is the quote phrase like race neutral qualification, how can that be more detrimental than helpful in actual implementation?
Well, the term race neutral, to me, it doesn't exist.
Right.
It doesn't exist when when someone who looks like me is driving down the street and gets pulled over, and you can look at the incarceration rates from folks of my community, then followed by the Latino community. These are the true equity community. This is the true equity community. Folks whose families have been devastated by what they call the failed war on drugs. So the race neutral thing, I think what they need to do specifically for cannabis and the incarceration rates, I mean, all the data is there. Look at the data, and that will tell you who is a true equity person and what kind of social justice practices need to be had to make things better. And one of the things that I, would love to see is not just legalization, but funding these programs. How does a person who's been wealth despaired creates a business that they deserve to be in? You've over incarcerated, you've destroyed families without funding. They're not going to be able to do that. So I'm hoping that while they're doing all this legislation and making decisions, about a people that I love in my community, that they will, consider the fact that with that devastation came wealth loss. And so let's fund some of these programs.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And, what are you hearing from the community members that you work with, from the people that you see coming through Success Centers and joining your programs and going, using the resources that you provide? What are you hearing from them in terms of what works in terms of social equity in the cannabis industry and what is lacking or isn't even addressed at all?
Well, it's addressed. Okay, so if you look at real estate in this country, San Francisco is a 7-mile radius city, and the availability of real estate. This is one of the first things that they have to get in order to even be considered for the permit. They have to find a location. I had a participant come in and say, she was just in tears. She's like, Miss Angela, I went to look at a space that I, found with my realtor, and the person that owned the property looks at the realtor and says, am I going to be renting to you or renting to her? So, although people want to think that we've come a long way in this country, those kind of discriminatory practices are still, prevalent right now today. And so we need to address that and call people out on it. How do you expect for folks to lift themselves up by the bootstraps when they haven't had any boots in the first place?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So
right. You got to give them laces.
Stop.
You got to give them laces. That's the only. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. But the thing is, I'm from my attitude in this program is like there's more than one way to skin a cat. Just because someone says no, those are going to be your badges of honor, because someone's going to say yes to you, and so you're not going to give up. In the meantime, this is a marathon, not a race. And so things will open up. You just stay at it. You keep learning. You keep growing your knowledge base. You keep getting out there and producing, going to these networking events and meeting people. And Miss Angela will keep doing the same things that I've been doing since I got here, and finding these folks that understand that this is a labor of love that we're doing, and it's because we know that folks need to be in this industry. We're educating folks, and it's just. We ain't rolling over. That's all I'm saying. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, yes indeed. We keep on chugging over here. That's for damn sure.
Keep on chugging. That's
for damn sure. Now, that same mayor's group also said that passing the recently unveiled Senate cannabis policy reform bill would represent, quote, a first step towards ending the failed war on drugs, repairing the multi-generational harm on U.S. citizens, particularly Black, Indigenous, and Latinx communities, and preventing further harm caused by collateral consequences of criminalization and intentional barriers to access the rapidly developing legalized market. Now,
that sounds like they're going to do some funding, right?
It would, right? You would think so. I don't know, though. It might be a lot of talk.
Right. The details are in what are in the legislation. Let's see what happens. That's what I always say. I get excited when I hear that there's going to be some change coming. And so let's see what they come up with, because a lot of times they'll start out with something and then it gets to the hands where they're going to legalize it or something, and they start striking things and taking things out. And then it's just a bunch of words on paper that's not really going to do anything for the community. And this is not what we want. And I'm not trying to, say anything negative against politicians or anything like that, because, these advocates are out here. They understand it. I think some of the, political folks need to educate themselves on really what it looks like on the ground levels when you're making decisions. Just see the visual future if that's at all possible. We don't want to keep getting people excited about something and then snatch the rug out from under their feet.
Which is, certainly happened multiple times before. Yeah, it's I would say it's one of the through lines when it comes to American history. Unfortunately. With all that being said, then I guess my last question for you is, how are you best? What are you doing to best prepare the next generation of leaders to be successful either in the cannabis industry or in whatever avenue they may choose? And what have you got looking forward to for the rest of the year? We're already halfway through September. I can't believe it.
Well, one of the things is, I wanted to mention that we also do tour workshops to a greenhouse grow out in Salinas. It's co-owned by Marie Montmarquet and Alan Hackett, which is her brother, who have been very instrumental in making sure that folks understand the whole seed to sale process, what it looks like on the cultivation side. That's so important. And when you look at the fact that these people they're an African-American brother and sister team, that are doing this operation, and making sure that our folks are getting the knowledge on, what we're feeding the plants, how the buck and break, and the processing of having the distribution. We also go down to Euphoric Life out in Hollister, where they have an extraction facility where they can go in and actually see these processings happen, and to know that the Black and brown community is able to have these businesses that are doing remarkable things for the industry, and especially for our community. It's about giving back, making sure that you extend that arm out. And sometimes I heard someone say to me once, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. My thought on that is, if you get them to the water and they can't drink, take a scoop of water and put the water to their lips.
Right.
We can no longer use those kind of thought processes for folks, because we're already been disappointed and forgotten about. And that doesn't mean that we're not genius. We have genius people. They use us for research and development. They use us for all these things, but they don't pay us. You understand where I'm going with this?
Oh, I'm with you, Miss Angela. Absolutely.
So these people that I work with, this equity community, I call them, it's a community of folks that are really trying hard to make stuff happen. Sometimes we have to spare, but there are folks that are coming in and working with us, working with them. They are getting these locations. They are growing in the business. They're getting jobs. I've talked to the recruiters about, I had a client named Bernadette Janae, that was getting overlooked, and she was brilliant. She's now over at Caliva in a very good position over there. We have to start opening our arms and opening our eyes, not just talking about diversity, not just talking about, we're a part of, we believe in Black Lives Matter, or however else they want to do that. It's about your actions and making sure that you are really being conscientious about what has happened in this community and wanting to really fix the problem. The mayors, more power to you. I'm happy that they're out there doing that. We really need these grassroots programs to really help us leg up, whatever you want to call it. We need them. So let's keep that going.
Absolutely. Snaps for that. Let's get these kids some laces, Miss Angela. Let's go. Yes, indeed. Well, Miss Angela, hey, thank you so much for offering your time and offering all of your perspective and sharing more about all that you've got going on over at Success Centers. Oh, actually, you know what? Before we go, where can our listeners and our viewers keep up with all that you've got going on at Success Centers throughout the World Wide Web? Yes, indeed. Let's get that plug in there.
Right. Visit our website. We're at www.successcenters.org. You can click on that equity button, and that will bring up my programming specifically, but we have lots to offer at Success Centers. You can also call me if you're interested in working with our participants, doing workshops, or if you have jobs that you want people to get hired into. My telephone number here directly is 415-549-7002. Call me. Let's talk.
Yes, indeed. Call me, beat me. Watch out now. You might get some more calls from some more mayors that you thought had never heard of you. So you better watch out now. Miss Angela, again, thank you so much for your time and all of your perspective and all that information. I very, very much appreciate it. And I sincerely wish y'all all of the best over at Success Centers. Please keep up the good work. Keep getting that good work out there, that good word, helping out the community. And I sincerely wish you all the best. Be well and stay safe out there in this wild world, man.
Thank you, and keep love in your heart.
Absolutely. Oh, yes, indeed. We got to stay human out here. Absolutely. Our hearts are what make us human, no doubt. Angela White, everybody, thank you all so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. That is it for Hash It Out. I am your host, RJ Balde, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Peace out. Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out our channel. Click here to watch another episode of Hash It Out. To find more cannabis industry reporting, insider stories, and to stay up to date on the latest trends, make sure to subscribe and keep up with our Trichomes community app. Download it now for free, and we'll see you there.